Today, I will show you how to insert some data into a SQL Server database using Entity Framework Core and to be able to access that on the front end. So let's get started. Hey, what's up, wonderful human beings? I hope everyone is okay today. So as stated in the introduction of this video, we are going to insert some data, specifically some recipes into our SQL Server database using Entity Framework Core migrations. If you are new to this tutorial series, then please make sure to check out the previous two tutorials that I've done, part 1 and part 2 of creating a Blazor application in Visual Studio 2019. I've got a playlist as well set up for you, so it should be pretty easy to set yourself up. However, if you don't want to do that, I've got all the code in the description. I've got it on GitHub, so please make sure that throughout the tutorial, check out the description. It's not too long, yeah, please make sure that you're up to speed to what I'm doing, so that it's not confusing for you. This will ensure that obviously we're both on the same page. So yeah, as part of this tutorial, we'll insert some data into our database, just a few recipes. I'll show you how to create a migration. I'll show you how to run that migration, and then we'll use application DB context in our recipe service to access that data, and then I'll show you how to use NavigationManager into the recipe list Blazor component to allow for navigating to the recipe details from the list page. So from a list of recipes to navigate to the recipes details. Let's start coding. Okay, so the first thing that we'll do for today's tutorial is to insert some recipes into the database, because obviously we will connect the database to the front end today. So in order to do that, I have created a tiny little script here that I've just commented out. So for the purposes of this tutorial, I don't need to get too deep into what this script does, but it's basically just inserting our list of recipes that we've had previously, or that we still have, but we're going to change in a bit. So as you can see, this particular list of recipes that we've done in the previous tutorial, I'm basically just translating that into SQL so that we can insert them into our recipes table. So I'm just gonna, so for the time being, obviously our table is empty, right? We haven't got anything, and I'm just gonna copy this, and then I will paste that into a migration, because obviously with Entity Framework you can do not only a schema migrations, so not only create tables and add columns and remove columns and whatnot, but you can also add data. So that's what we're going to do for our very first step. So if we open up Package Manager console, and then we type in add migration, and then we call this recipes insert. And then one thing to note, obviously, the default project needs to be the data access project. So wherever the application DB context is defined, for those of you who haven't seen the previous two videos, which I urge you to see if you are interested. So we created a data folder with an application DB context right here, where the DB context of Entity Framework Core has been initialized. So this is how we've done it. As part of this video, what we'll do is we'll add a new migration. Okay, so that's done. And it just created our a second migration called recipes insert. The first part of this migration name is the timestamp, so date and time, so that it is unique to our project. Okay, and then in here, what we'll do is type in migration builder, migrationbuilder.sql. And then open and close parentheses, and then inside I'm going to put an @ sign so that it escapes all the weird characters that the SQL has. And then I will paste this snippet that obviously I'm going to attach to the description. So throughout the tutorial, just make sure that you check out the description, where this particular project will be posted on GitHub, so you can just download it for free, as well as this snippet. Cool. So I pasted it in here. It looks ugly, but don't worry about it. It's, like I said, it simply just inserts the recipe title, description, date created, and then date updated. Okay, and then hit save. And then to run this, all we'll do is come back to the package manager console and type in update database. Oops, if I can spell, obviously, update database, and then hit enter. The same, the default project needs to be the data access. Okay, so that's done. So if we head over back to SQL Server and execute this line, select star from recipes, select all from recipes. As you can see, we've got all of our recipes as we did before, but the only thing different is the fact that we've got some times that I have defined. But everything else should be pretty much the same. The next step in this tutorial is very simple, actually. So we'll close out of this migration because we don't need it anymore to be opened, obviously. So we expand the RecipeManager and we need to create a recipe folder inside the pages, inside the RecipeManager project. So that's what we will do. As simple as recipe. So right click, add new folder, call it recipe, and then move the recipes list inside that recipe, just so that everything is contained nicely. Now, at this step, what we'll do is actually go in the services class and inject the application DB context that will help us access the recipes that we've just inserted in the database. So to do that, we open up the recipe service class, which is here, or if you haven't got the project, just create yourself a service and then go at the top of your service and type in private read-only application DB context, and then call it _DB because that's what we call class level members. Okay, and it's not going to recognize it, obviously, so just press Control dot to open up the IntelliSense and then add the using data access.data because it doesn't know about application DB context by default, and now it knows. So this is null at this point. So we need to initialize. We need to define it using dependency injection. So to do that, we type in CTOR to generate a constructor for this service, and then in here we define the application DB context like so. _DB, so our class level DB is equal to the injected dependency in this particular project, in this particular constructor. So by default, when we run our app, this DB will be defined. So what we do here is assign our class level variable to the one that's defined through dependency injection provided for us by .NET. Okay, so at this point, this is defined. So now if we head over to the list function, we don't actually need to define this mock list of recipes anymore. But instead, we can actually access the recipes that we've just inserted in the database. So to do that, it is extremely simple. So just type in _DB to access our class level data context, database context, and then type in .recipes. So we are now able to access our recipes entity, and then just add them all to a list. And that is it, guys. And now if we run the app, as you can see, we've got the data in here. So how this is different to the one that in the previous tutorial is that I defined some time so I can make it different, so I can show you for the purposes of this tutorial that we have just accessed the data in the DB. Exciting, right? Okay, so for the last step in this tutorial, we'll make the recipes list directive to redirect to a future details page of a recipe. So in order to do that, because obviously we want to be able to access each recipe in particular, or even to just create a new one. So in order to access the details of a recipe, because at this point we're just selecting the first 50 characters. So in order to do that, we need to navigate by clicking on a row from our list. We need to navigate to the details page of that recipe to see the full details of that particular recipe. So to do that, we need to inject the NavigationManager at the top of our recipes list Blazor component. So that's what I will do, inject NavigationManager. So that's provided with Blazor. NavigationManager. So this will actually allow us, enable us to use navigation. Alternatively, you could have used an anchor tag and then the href attribute to redirect, but this is much nicer, and you'll see why. So at the bottom of our code block, we can go ahead and create a private method, and I'm going to put the return type to void, so no return type, called redirect to. You can call this basically anything you want, but I'm just going to call it redirect to. And this will take in an int, which is actually the recipe ID, because this is how we'll know what recipe to return from the database when we get to loading up the details page in the next tutorial. We're now just setting up the scene, right? So what we do here is as simple as NavigationManager.navigate to. And we'll just leave this empty because we'll define the page directive in the next tutorial. So I'm just going to put it like this. Right. And then to call this method, and this is really important, so pay attention for a second here. This is the table, right? And this is the body. And in the previous tutorial, we've said if there are no recipes, then just put in here a row to say no recipes available. However, if you see, if we've got rows, then render this part right here. So we're looping through a list of recipes that we've just returned from the service. And then we make a new column for each particular column for each particular property in that recipe entity. And in order to be able to allow for clicking the row and then navigating to that details page, we just go into the TR element, and then we put a space and then an add sign, and then we can access now the Blazor on click attribute, and then we put an equal sign. So inside here, we could as well just put redirect to, so the name of the method, and that is it, because we're not actually allowed by default to put the parentheses. So as you can see, we can't do this. But in order to pass in the recipe ID, what we do is we go in front of it and we do open and close parentheses, and then this. So at this point, this will actually enable us to pass in the recipe ID. So we can do this. Right. That is it. Cool. So obviously at this point, this is not going to do very much, but this will just allow us. Actually, I'm just going to quickly run the app for you. Cool. So we're on the recipes list. So when we go and click on a row, it will take us to the root of our project. So sorry, not the root of our project, the root of our website, of our web app. So if I click on it, it takes us to home, right? So ideally, what we want to do and what we will do in the previous tutorial, which will come up actually this week, so stay tuned, is to take this to take us to the details page. Cool. Yeah. That is pretty much it with today's tutorial. I really hope you liked it. I noticed that the previous 3 tutorials that I've done are quite long. So what I've decided to do is actually to split them down and to post more frequently. So I'll try to post 2 times a week. If you did enjoy this tutorial, please make sure to like my video. Leave a comment if you've had any issues. So I'll make sure to respond to your comment, and please consider subscribing and hit the notification bell. If you would enjoy, just go ahead and see the previous 2 tutorials. I've got all the code in the description. But until next time, stay safe.